Hard mode Siege has proven Assault still needs a rework. Okay, somebody has a really good post about Assault in Siege mode specifically, it seems like. And now, obviously, we have talked about this class quite a bit recently, and this is definitely something I wanted to cover before I start jumping into, my Siege runs with this class. I'm very excited to start doing this. However, I definitely wanted to touch base because, as far as I've seen, a lot of people are really starting to gravitate towards the dodge builds. And, basically just using your jump pack as a way to dodge. And to me, that's great. That's great. That is honestly great that there is a build out there with Assault that is proven to be pretty good in Siege mode. However, I would definitely rather use my jump pack for slams, which is unfortunate because that's definitely where I'm going to get punished for the most part. Unless your slam is clearing out, 70% of the enemies in the room, you're going to get some chip damage. And obviously, the Assault class definitely has a hard time gaining back their contested health in the sense that they could pretty much lose ammo, or they rely on gun strikes. So this all really depends on your build. The Assault definitely has less freedom than other classes when it comes to, making a Siege mode build or an Operations build. Anything with high difficulty with the Assault class normally gets, you are using non-lethal gun strikes, get your armor back. You're probably using Wings of Flame, you're using your jetpack dodge more often than you are using it to slam, which is honestly kind of fun. I have to admit, that's great. But I kind of want to see the slam get a little bit of a buff as well. I think overall, every weapon besides the Thunderhammer, I guess, maybe even other Thunderhammer variants, they should get a, there needs to be a buff with slam. I think that would be very, very nice. But okay. Now, I said my part about what I think Assault might need, or maybe some things that haven't really been talked about as far as it's kind of underwhelming to slam, which I know everyone's probably, aware of that. But yeah, let's jump into this rework post. I always like seeing players kind of give, extensive, feedback as far as, building a class and reworking a class. Hi all, I know this has been done to death, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the topic. As an Assault heavy main, Assault is still drastically weaker and less helpful than any other class. It is not like PvP, where every class can be argued to be the best. In PvE, Assault is objectively the weakest, which is kind of funny. In PvP, the Assault class is probably one of the better classes. Let's look at the facts. Underwhelming ability. Every other class has an ability that exemplifies the class, and Assault's jetpack ability is just sad. You barely go up in the sky, jetpack dodges are inconsistent, and ground pound is a suicide option if you do not have the prestige perk for it. Yeah, the iframes when you're charging. That's probably a good point. That is definitely something I should bring out. But yeah, let's continue. Lack of range damage. Assault is just a worse tactical with no primary weapon. Assault should be able to grapple with zoanthropes in the sky instead of being the worst class to fight them. Okay, wait. Assault should be able to grapple with zoanthropes in the... Why? Wait, hold on, I'm confused. How is Assault gonna grapple a zoanthrope? That's... Okay, we're starting off pretty weird, but okay, let's continue. Worst perk tree. Honestly, when it comes to zoanthropes with the Assault class, I'm pretty satisfied with the fact that we can perfect dodge the death beams, but also plasma, very powerful. But yeah, if you can't regenerate ammo, that's where the thropes start to be an issue. Worst perk tree. Assault's perks are just sad. Only a handful of perks are actually useful, which is strange. No self-healing perks, no useful team perks, barely any useful starting perks, etc. Holy cow. Okay, so when it comes to starting perks, it's definitely like Wings of Flame, right? To be able to get your jetpack dodge as good as possible. That's pretty much one of the first, rogue perks you should pick up. No useful team perks. I honestly... Look, let's say they buff the ability charge for the team up to like 20%. Like everyone on your team gets 20% more cooldown on their, on their ultimate or, their equipment skill or whatever you want to call it. That would be pretty good. That would be pretty good. Right now, 10% is kind of weird. But I think 20%, I would call that useful. And the gun strikes. The gun strike perk was nerfed patches ago from 50% to 30%, which now looking back on that, kind of unnecessary. So I would say they're overlooked at the very least, but yeah, they're underwhelming. They're underwhelming. There's usefulness in the team perk section. It's just underwhelming. it's like, again, 20% extra charge for cooldowns would be really nice. the 50% more gun strike damage also would be really nice, but they nerfed it a while ago, and now it's kind of like, it's kind of unnecessary. I think when it comes to the team perks for Assault, yeah, they have a point here. Definitely, they deserve a buff. The other team perk is a melee perk. Whenever I see it, when I'm not playing Assault, I'm kind of disappointed in seeing it, because it's only extra melee damage against Extremists, and honestly, if I'm playing Sniper and I'm not playing melee Sniper, I'm not very interested in that team perk. Barely any useful starting perks, etc. Everything Assault can do, Vanguard does better. Yeah, we covered this before too. If Vanguard was just the better Assault class, that was crazy. But yeah, it's kind of true. Vanguard against iframes, not tied to a prestige perk. Two of the best team perks in the game. Yes, Inner Fire still very strong. Also, Inner Fire just absolutely makes squad cohesion, I believe, is the ability charge perk for Assault. Yeah, 10%. Just passive 10% extra cooldown charge is okay, but if you get 5% cooldown charge every time you execute a major, that's kind of wild. Two abilities to heal itself: a primary weapon, better single target elimination, better perks, consistent puffs. Wait, hold on. Better single target elimination? I think that's debatable as far as with Vanguard. I mean, if you go with their peak power, it's like with the Assault class, you still get block Thunderhammer slams. When it comes down to single target elimination, it's hard to top that. I mean, the Melta is pretty good too. I agree. I mean, the Melta is definitely good. The Grapple's good, sure, but like, I guess I'm just saying it's debatable. Better perks, consistent buffs, etc. Hard mode destroys Assault. Yes, it does. Siege mode in general destroys this class, unfortunately. If you're not spamming dodges, which can also, you can potentially dodge into a Carnifex swing. So I guess it all depends on timing. In the later waves of Hard Siege, Assault becomes more and more useless. No range damage, suicide ability, no useful team perks all accumulate in annihilating the entire class. Okay. The blatant Bulwark favoritism. Bulwark gets everything, Assault gets nothing. It is a joke at this point. Let's take a look, shall we? Bulwark has some of the best team perks in the game. Assault has the worst team perks in the game. Comparing the Assault class to Bulwark is wild. Bulwark's ability can save an entire run. Assault's ability can doom an entire run. Assault's ability can doom an entire run. Because what? They just slam into something that's like not supposed to be slammed on, I guess. Like Biovore, maybe, who's like, putting out spore mines and you hit into spore mines. Maybe I can see something like that. I don't know. Sure. Bulwark's ability can save an entire run. I'll give him that. Bulwark gets the Thunderhammer. Their explanation: because it's fun. This is by far the most egregious favoritism in the game. They totally could make Assault more useful and fun with a simple overhaul, but they're actively choosing not to. Yeah, no, to be completely honest, the devs' intimidation into buffing Assault has been pretty frustrating. Like, 100%. I would definitely center a video about how I feel like the devs are kind of being a little bit too hesitant on buffing Assault, and I could definitely make it, like, pretty negative, but I don't want to go that route specifically. However, it does need to be said how often we talk about this class and how often people are kind of debating its usefulness and everything like that. Overall, there's definitely something wrong with this class when it comes to the heightened difficulties of the game, like Wave 11 through 15, Hard Siege mode. Even Wave 11 through 15 on normal Siege mode with this class, I can feel like it can be a little bit underwhelming. Yeah, for whatever reason, and it's starting to kind of, it's starting to be a tad bit annoying. The devs' intimidation, I would say, to make sure that the Assault class is actually going to be able to survive on its own is interesting. Well, at the very least, to make it less tedious to survive on its own would still be very helpful. And then also the devs being too intimidated to fix intimidating aura, which is kind of funny to say. But yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, the devs are kind of in a weird spot right now where they just increased the difficulty in the game. I think they shouldn't be too hesitant to apply buffs to things or fix things that we've been asking for quite a while. And I think, honestly, when it comes to good faith, the devs definitely get a lot of good faith from us. But some of these things start to weigh on me a little bit, because I just straight up am starting to get annoyed that the devs are too hesitant on buffing the Assault class, because right now the Assault class, when it comes to DPS, is amazing. It's just the sustainability and the incapable nature of the class to actually clear up mistakes you make. You practically have to play perfect with this class, which is, you don't really have to be in that position for any other class. That's it, and also the fact that you have to rely on gun strikes to manage your ammo is kind of wild, to be completely honest. But also, I am starting to notice Bulwark isn't in the best spot either when it comes to fighting chaos in later waves. Melee is definitely good, but it's also pretty risky. The thing that Bulwark has is Intimidating Aura, and that thing is also kind of broken on Terminus, which is super annoying. And the devs have dragged their feet on that as well. So I have two examples of devs basically taking their time to fix things and or buff things and or adjust / balance, and I think both of those examples are starting to be pretty annoying because considering how tough these later waves are, it just feels like they're kind of, you know, they're still too worried about these classes being overpowered for Absolute 1.0 when we're in Absolute 2.0, and Hard Siege Mode is a completely different beast when it comes to difficulty. So I think the devs actually have some room here for some favorable buffs for the Assault class, and I honestly don't think it will break the game at all. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about it. Bulwark gets more executions, more customization, more weapons, more champion skins, and more prestige perks that can actually do something. Yeah, no, I do agree with... Actually, I think the Assault's prestige perks are actually pretty good. It's just missing something. But yeah, more champion skins. I don't understand what they're bringing up cosmetics for. That's crazy. They got Assault right in 2 other game modes. In Campaign, using the jump pack is incredibly fun, engaging, and expanded. In PvP, you can truly achieve aerial superiority, which is the selling point of the class in the official videos, promoting operations. Assault should be able to fly, hover, and air dodge instead of exclusively dodging occasionally, and ground pounding. Jump dodge should be free, and our normal dodge. I've heard people mention that quite a bit, and I just don't 100% know how they're going to implement that. But if they were able to do it, that'd be nice. I honestly think the Assault class just needs Adrenaline Rush in the Prestige perk, which is, I think, okay. But, like, even in that sense, you're still going to run out of ammo against Thropes. So even if you have full health, without any ammo against a Thrope, you're sitting there relying on Death Beam gun strikes. That's kind of wild. But dude, honestly, a fair amount of people said, yeah, when you perfect dodge with the jetpack, you should get a little bit of health back. I really enjoy that. But honestly, I still think the Assault class would need something to get ammo back, and I'm not 100% sure how they could potentially just give the Assault class more ammo. But you know, something like Adrenaline Rush for ammo would be nice. Yeah, what does Tactical have? Emperor's Vengeance or something? Yeah, whenever like they get an execution, they get some ammo back. Give that to the Assault. That would be cool. And then just add in a little health bonus to Wings of Flame or something. That would be great. That would be actually amazing. That fixes the class, guys. 100%. I would admit though that would make your slamming builds. You know, you'd have to balance between slams and dodges quite often. I would say that. That's still fine. That's still fine. Simply giving Assault the PvP jump pack or an equivalent version and changing some of the perks will elevate the class to being useful team-wise. Thanks for reading. Discussion is open in the comments. All right, interesting. Now, I will admit, I'm not like the biggest fan of the PvP Assault jump pack. Here's the thing. I try to avoid gameplay that feels repetitive because obviously that can be a little bit, you know, sometimes it just feels a little bit mindless. However, when it comes to, like, you know, let's say, for example, the multi-Melta for heavy, what keeps that from being repetitive is its devastation and the sustainability it gives to that class. Most of the time, what makes it not repetitive is the fact that you are maintaining the ammo with it and you are specifically looking for groups. So you actually have to kind of like prioritize certain targets with it, which, you know, kind of makes it a little bit more engaging. With the slam, I could definitely see you prioritizing certain targets, but like ultimately just being like slam into another slam into another slam. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to feel very satisfying. I mean, obviously it feels satisfying in the sense of damage goes, but to just like repeat actions, you know, it doesn't really feel that great. But overall, I understand why people want the PvP jump pack. I just don't think it's like a priority, to be completely honest. At the very least, I would rather just see them decrease the cooldown on the jetpack itself, you know? But there's so many ways you can do that with the class. I don't think cooldown's even an issue on the class. So for the most part, I think as far as the actual functionality of the jump pack, I think it's fine, especially the way people are using it to dodge things and get damage out of it. That's pretty dope. And ample ammunition is also really good for... See, the thing is, people don't understand that the Assault class has a great range damage kit, but, like, it just doesn't have any ammunition. And not to mention, gun strikes don't get buffed by range damage buffs. So technically, all the range damage buffs for assault are essentially a trap just to get you to waste your ammo. Like, that's kind of how it operates in that sense. I guess at the very least, you could save your hammer. You can save your ammunition for like zone thropes and stuff, and then just use the hammer for everything else. That is definitely something. But talking about this class and talking about hammers and slams, I really want to play it right now, to be completely honest. But yeah, we have to finish. We have to finish this video. Let's see what the feedback is on these notes. Some of these notes are good, but like the thing is, some of these notes are also pretty repeated. But yeah, overall, when it comes to siege mode, it's definitely a common sentiment that the assault class is falling behind in siege mode. So this is at least another opportunity to make it clear that the assault definitely has some good stuff going for it. It just, honestly, when it comes to synergy with the class, it's a little awkward. I maintain that if they buffed the jump pack to match the PvP campaign version, gave full immunity while in the air, and gave the Thunderhammer a flat 30% damage buff, Assault wouldn't be the top class in PvE. So, okay, so let me get this straight. Assault has full iframes in the air, Thunderhammer flat 30% damage buff. That is pretty cool. Jump pack to match the PvP campaign version so you can spam it more. Assault still wouldn't be the top class in PvE? I don't know about that. I will admit, though, here's the thing. Here's how I imagine this in higher difficulties. You pretty much take everything out with your Thunderhammer. Whatever you don't take out is going to take you out. That's pretty much what's going to happen. But still, giving the Thunderhammer a 30% extra damage buff is actually pretty cool. And I would like to see, the fencing and the balanced Thunderhammer I would like to see more damage on that for sure. I think this is pretty debatable, though. I gotta be honest, this is pretty debatable. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you think the Assault class would be the best class in the game if it had full iframes on slams, Thunderhammer got a 30% extra damage buff, and it also has 3 charges for the slam. I have been desperately hoping they would expand the jump pack's functionality. It should operate the same way it does in PvP. You should be able to hover. You should be able to... Okay, wait, the hover? That's true. I did forget about the hovering. Hovering is interesting, but I think in practice in PvE, it would be more trouble than it's worth. But honestly, it is a nifty tool. You should be able to transverse over obstacles. That's a given. Honestly, that's fair. But I think the devs are warranted to kind of be afraid of this, because falling through the level is definitely a possibility. And you definitely need more height. Yeah, see, again, I just don't see, unless if more height equals more damage. I've been hit out of the air and killed by jumping Tyranid warriors with a sword. Okay, yeah, that's wild. Jump pack aside, the only real build is Wings of Flame, and that is useless without commitment. However, both of those take away from Ground Pound, which is really the class's main ability. Well, not anymore. Apparently using the jetpack to dodge is, like, definitely the... And here's the thing. The jetpack dodge is probably taking over Assault only because the devs worked on that more than they worked on the Ground Slam. With the Ground Slam, we finally got a prestige perk for it. But for, like, the jump pack dodges, they actually reworked perks to work with that, They didn't really do much with the Ground Slam, which is unfortunate. So it's honestly not surprising to see that the dodge build is the only one that's aging, well into the higher difficulties. Assault needs a third ability charge, or the perks shouldn't force you to go all in with one route over the other. A dodge build is very weak against Chaos since they are focused on range damage, making Wings of Flame feel useless besides the Hellbrute or the occasional close range Terminator, but even at close range they still prefer to shoot missiles point blank. Yeah, that's definitely not something that works in the favor of the Assault class, I will admit. The class is a lot of fun to play, but generally just a worse Vanguard, which as a class has tons of amazing and arguably some of the most powerful perks in the game. Yeah, they're correct about that. Unmatched Zeal when it comes to siege mode is just perfect. I feel like if the devs ever went back to nerf that, they know there's no reason for it, but for whatever reason, they are more afraid of buffing Assault than Unmatched Zeal, which is kind of interesting. So I understand that the Assault class has some great DPS, but the overall survivability is definitely something that leaves the class into question of what other things the devs can do to improve it, and not to leave it in a frustrating state, for siege mode, mostly. I think in operations, the class is probably fine. The thing is, with siege mode, it is very uncapped in the sense that, in operations, when you see extremist spawn, there's a limit. In siege mode, there's probably a limit, but the limit's like 8 or 10. so obviously siege mode is going to be a different beast altogether when it comes to balancing. So honestly, as much as I can get annoyed by this, I definitely understand where the devs can have an issue with properly balancing this class for the later waves. That's fair. But yeah, this is why we're here talking about it. But yeah, anyway, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Hopefully, we can see some sort of adjustment in a hot fix for this class. That would be great. But yeah, for now, I really hope that this can be one of the last times I talk about this class in a negative way. I actually really want to play the class. I want to play more of it. I actually really want to use the ground slam in siege mode to see how it is. We will see. But ultimately, it's pretty hot. So hopefully it cools down in my room a little bit. I'll leave the AC on or something, and then I'll probably get into a nice run with the assault class. Regardless, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about the class at the moment. Have you played it in siege mode? Do you have any notes about the ground slam? But yeah, overall, it would be really nice to see the ground slam get some sort of buff. Maybe the Thunderhammer needs a buff. I would like to see the ground slam overall get a buff, because it does feel kind of weak to ground slam with a power sword. It just doesn't work well, and you're just going to take chip damage as you land. Yeah. Regardless, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this, and thanks for watching.